All righty. Tonight we have a multi-talented individual, author, performer, songwriter, you name it. We're just really lucky to have him here tonight. Give a big Charlotte welcome to Danny Ellis.
Was that 2 claps? It's amazing. You can't hear a thing back there. They don't build houses like this anymore, do they? Anyway, my name is Danny Ellis. I didn't hear my introduction, so I'm not so sure what was said about me. But it's great to be here. Thank you all for coming out. And some of you may know that I'm an Irishman living in Asheville, North Carolina. Very happy to be living there. I'm going to start off with a song which I wrote recently on my last album, and this, you know, I've had a lot of influences in my life. First of all, the very first influence in my life as a singer was my mother. My mother had the most beautiful voice you would ever hear, you'd ever heard in your life, and she would bring me to the local pub on the corner, where she would sing, and when she would sing, you could hear a pin drop in the pub, and that's saying something in an Irish pub. And she had such a beautiful voice that just kind of raised the hair on the back of your neck whenever she sang. And she was a very lonely woman, so she put her loneliness into her songs, and I might tell you a little bit of that later on. But so I've had a lot of influences: the Beatles, of course, Elvis Presley, the Rolling Stones, and then the Clancy Brothers, I suppose. And so my life has been really blessed with a lot of different music influences. And this first song is called Falling Heroes Rain, which is about all my influences as I was growing up. From that first tiny transistor radio speaker, they all came bursting through with their blue suede shoes and their high-heeled sneakers, singing Bama-lama, Bama-loo, till I just knew a change was gonna come. All my heroes came falling like falling heroes, like falling heroes rain. And I laid me down beneath those falling heroes like grass upon the plain. Falling heroes rain. Now the light in your song ain't no fading flower that bloomed some other spring, and you shone that light on my darkest hour, and the first time I heard you sing, it was the river I could skate away on. All my heroes came falling like falling heroes, like falling heroes rain. And I laid me down beneath those falling heroes to get soaking wet again. Falling heroes rain. So cry me a river, tell me I'm the only one. Hold back the night, song save my life, show me that I'm not alone. Won't won't you sing me that song now, the song of the morning, though evening's drawing near? 'Cause I'm still the child who once answered your calling, and when evening's empire is here, we will stay forever young. All my heroes came falling like falling heroes, like falling heroes rain, and I still lay me down beneath those falling heroes to get soaking wet again. Falling heroes rain, and in my hall of fame, falling heroes rain. Falling heroes. Thank you. Thank you. I was brought up in a really, really crazy Irish orphanage from when I was like 8 years of age. Some of you may know this. From when I was 8 years of age till I was 16 years. And I left when I was 16. And I learned how to be a cobbler, which is a shoemaker, in the orphanage. And I got myself a job on the south side of Dublin City, mending shoes. And I was totally, just out of the orphanage, totally had no idea what was going on in the world. I'd really not spent, from when I was 8, hardly any time in the world at all. I'd gone to see my auntie once or twice. But, so I was just really a stranger in a strange world. But I didn't have the good sense to be scared. I had no idea what the world held for me. And I was just so glad to be out of the orphanage that I was just really in heaven. But one thing I began to notice that I had never noticed really was loneliness. And, you know, I don't think I'd ever initiated a conversation with a girl in my whole life since I was 8. And so I had no idea. I'd see all these beautiful girls, and I had no idea. How does a person get to meet a girl, and what do you say, and so on? I had nobody to advise me. And I was walking home from work one evening, a summer evening, and I was passing by a hotel on my way to my flat, which was on the north side of the quayside in Dublin. And I saw this girl working in the hotel, and she was working in between the doors, in between the glass doors, and I'd never seen anything so beautiful in my whole life. So I just came to a total stop, and I'm just transfixed looking at this young girl. And she stops what she's doing and looks up at me and gives me this smile, this kind of smile that I'd never seen in my life, which held all the promises that you can imagine of a young man's dreams. And so I wrote a little song about that. This one is called Ask. I was just 16. She was scrubbing floors at the Harbor Queen through the hotel doors. Her eyes told mine through the hotel glass till the end of time. If you'll only ask, if you need a friend, when the sky is torn, when November wind drowns the harbor horn, I will light the shore till the storm is past. My heart is yours if you'll only ask. I wait outside till her work is done, till the evening tide makes the waters one. I share the room on the North Quay side with a grand old man. banks of the Bonnie Clyde. If you need a friend when the sky is torn, when November wind drowns the harbor horn, I will light the shores till the storm is past. My heart is yours if you'll only ask. Down on the floor, drunk as a king, how the old man snored like a train in spring. On tippy toes, we mind his head as we laid our clothes down on the old man's bed. I loved her there. The old man slept, her raven hair across my chest. I talked too much, I laughed too long. Her tender touch ushers in the dawn. Oh, when the sky is torn, when November wind drives the harbor horn, I will light the shores till the storm is past. My heart is yours if you'll only ask. She was my own, my first true love. You ask how long, not long enough. It was just one glance through the hotel glass. I was just 16. Too shy to ask. Here you go. Thank you. Almost a true story. Little bit of poetic license in there. I always wanted to write that story, you know, but it was all over in like about 10 seconds, and not in the way that you think. No. But didn't last very long. But I thought I'd love to write about that. But how can you write about something that was over like? Actually, I did go back the next day. I got up the courage to go back the next day. I thought to myself, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to speak to that girl, and I'm going to take her out to the pictures. You know, she pays for herself. And so I went back the next day, but she had gone back to her parents in Donegal or something like that. So I never saw her again. But I learned a lot about writing songs and when I wrote that song, because you don't always have to tell the complete truth. You know, you can have a little poetic license every now and again. So here's a song this time. It's pretty much about every relationship I've ever had in my life. I write a lot of songs about my wife, by the way. You might notice that as the night goes by. Because to me, relationship is like relationship is where you meet the world, you know. Because you have all these ideas about the world is, you know what I'm saying? Until you get married. And then you realize you never had a clue. And we've been married 25 years and I still haven't a clue. My mother spent her nights alone, thinking about the absence of my father. When he finally came home, it was never happy ever after. I never thought to ask them why. They never held each other tight. It never dawned on me that something wasn't right until the night I saw the light inside your eyes shine for me. told me she was hard to see. So I tried not to look at her too closely. She hid herself so easily. I thought it was her way to take it slowly. Oh, but I liked the way she used her mind, the way she weaved her storylines. I never called them lies. Sometimes I lied myself until the night I saw the light inside your eyes. Shine for me, 'cause what you never had, you can't ever miss. But I was missing you long before I knew there was something true out there beyond the blue. And promises we never made. Don't wait around expecting to be broken. Some music that just can't be played, saying all the things that can't be spoken. Oh, and in the dying of the day, when our dreams come out to play, I lay beside you in the night and float away and pray I'll wait to see the light inside your eyes. Shine for me, shine for me. Oh, in the dying of the day, when our dreams come out to play, I lay beside you in the night and float away and pray I'll wait to see the light inside your eyes. Shine for me, shine for me, shine for me. I want to hear you all sing the song. Shine for me, shine for me, shine for me. Can't hear you. Shine for me. One more time. Shine for me, shine for me, shine for me. Won't you shine? Shine. Thank you. That got me in our good books for a while. I think most of you know an Irish guitar player called John Doyle. Is that right? Right. One of the best, not one of the best Irish guitar player, I think, in the world. And John and I were good friends. We're from the same part of the world. And John played on a couple of my CDs, and I helped him produce his last CD. He recorded it in my studio in Asheville. And so we've been really good friends for a number of years. And so he came over to my house one day for lunch. And he said, "Danny, let's write a song together. We should write a song." And I thought, okay. So he said, "Do you have anything that, anything that you haven't really, worked very hard on, And actually, a couple of days before that, my wife was in the backyard, Liz, with my daughter Irene, and they found a little kitten underneath the deck, the tiniest little kitten you've ever seen in your life, just like not much bigger than a tennis ball. And so it was a Friday afternoon, late Friday afternoon. And this kitten really looked like it wasn't going to make it over the weekend. And so Liz took the kitten into the house and sat on the sofa, on the settee, with the kitten on her chest, looking into the kitten's eyes, because the kitten wouldn't take its eyes off Liz. And so I wrote this little poem about that. And I said to John, I said, let me get this poem. I've just printed it out. So I got the poem and I gave it to John. And John is reading through the poem, and he goes, wait a minute, he says. And if you know John, he has a very good way with language, you know. He says, I'm not writing an effing poem about an effing cat, and that's that. He says, I'll write a poem about a deer or an elk, you know, or like a bear or a tiger or a wolf. But I'm not effing writing a poem about an effing cat, you know. So anyway, so I said, okay. So I worked it on a little bit and changed it ever so slightly. And John came up with one of the most beautiful pieces of melodies. This is called The Hills That I Know. My love found a linnet alone and forgotten, abandoned and broken and barely alive. She held it and kissed it and wrapped it in cotton, taught it to fly by the light in her eyes. Now I glide as a cloud over cottage and castle, city of plunder where nothing can grow. The terrible freedom of endless horizon is pulling me back to the hills that I know. My love is an ocean of pity and pardon, and petty annoyance, all fickle as fame. As I sit in judgment, she tends to the garden and banishes anger as fast as it came. Still I glide as a cloud over cottage and castle, city of plunder where nothing can grow. The terrible freedom of endless horizon is pulling me back to the hills that I know. John didn't write that bit, I wrote that bit. My love, hear the whisper of innocence calling, forgotten inside me, all buried and blue. She held it and kissed it, wrapped it in mourning, forsaking all others till I heard it too. Now I glide as a cloud over cottage and castle, city of plunder where nothing can grow. The terrible freedom of endless horizon is pulling me back to the hills that I know. The terrible freedom of endless horizon is pulling me back to the hills that I know. Thank you. Now, I've since become an author as well as being a musician, and my book was released last year in Ireland, and it got to #2 in the Irish non-fiction, which I'm not sure how much that means, but at least I can say it got to #2 in the non-fiction world. And the book is about my life in an Irish orphanage. And when I first started to write about my life in an orphanage, it's not something I actually wanted to write about. It's something that kind of came out all on its own. And I can't think a few of you, any of you read my book here tonight? We got about 10, 15 people. Cool. And So thank you for that, by the way. And so when I wrote it, it wasn't something I wanted to revisit. You know, I never really thought there was much that I could write about there. You know, and because you know when you look back as an adult over your childhood, you don't really think anything special happened to you, but you're wrong. Something very special happened to you. It happened to everybody. And one night I was sitting by my guitar after a long, tired gig, and out came a song about my life in an Irish orphanage. And before I knew what was going on, I was writing a whole album about it. And it was a wonderful journey for me, really, to go back to my childhood, to a time that was really very painful for me. And I didn't really have much power as a child. You know, children don't have much power, especially when it's taken away from them, you know, by abandonment and so on. But anyway, so I wrote my CD, and then I was talked into writing a book. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take you into the prologue of the book, and I'm going to sing a song from my CD. Now, I want to tell you first that this orphanage was crazy place. There was like 800 boys in it, all running around from dawn to dusk, crazy. Every single one of them had been either abandoned by their parents, they were caught stealing, or their parents had died, or just the most unfortunate circumstances. Sounds like a really sad story. But, you know, for every sad story that was there was a happy story as well, you know. So I'm going to take you into the book, then I'm going to take you into the orphanage. So fasten your safety belts. This is my prologue of my book. I was born in the heart of Dublin City, in the same old one-bedroom tenement flat where my granny, 18 years before, gave birth to my ma, where the rats, emboldened by my poor marksmanship, would saunter over to the rug beneath the dining table, and finding no crumbs again, would dine where they left off last time, on the rug itself, where the wooden shelves from cupboards and scullery, promoted like that rug to a station never intended by their makers, were chopped up for kindling with bread knife and rolling pin, where ma, at night, with a bottle of Guinness and without da, would sing for my two younger sisters and I by that little fire. Her dark, beautiful voice, so filled with emotion that sometimes she'd scare you. With eyes darting nervously around the room, we'd forget the hunger and the cold as the deep river of her voice held us, like boats in the night. Life was hard and turbulent, often violent, but we knew how to take a punch. But what we didn't know was that my family was falling apart, with my dad away in America for 1.5 years. And what we didn't know was that my mother was going to throw in the towel and put me and the girls into a separate orphanage in the far side of Dublin. And I ended up in the toughest orphanage in Ireland, called Artane Industrial School, with 800 other lads running around screaming and fighting and shouting and God knows what. And the very first thing I remember in the orphanage was the first Sunday morning. From the back of the church, I hear this. Kyrie, eleison. Kyrie, eleison. Early Mass that first Black Sunday, I'm not praying very hard. Then he sings the most beautiful solo, Kyrie, rips my soul apart. And tears that I'd held back for days come pouring down like rain. wasn't hard to let it all go when Tommy Bonner sang, forbidden to look round us in church. Today I have no choice. I have to see what kind of human being stood behind that angel voice. And in his eyes you saw the place where prayer first began. And you knew that God was listening when Tommy Bonner sang. Dark as any moonless night, clean as the morning dew, and he sang as if to save his life while saving my life too. And I never got to know him at all, but I knew him just the same. You see, 'cause everybody knows you when you sing like Tommy sang. Then one April Sunday morning, early in the spring, I thought he must be sick with the flu or something, 'cause he didn't come to sing. And when the mass was over, my heart fell to the floor to hear that Tommy turned 16 and left the school, and he'd sing at Mass no more. At first I felt again abandoned, deserted and betrayed. It seemed that everything I loved would run and leave me here, lonely and afraid. But there and then a seed was planted, and God, I wish I'd felt back then just a small taste of the joy I'd come to find trying to sing like Tommy sang. Hey, 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 dark as any moonless night, clean as the morning dew, and he sang as if to save his life while saving my life too. And I never got to know that lad, but I knew him just the same. You see, 'cause everybody knows you. Everybody knows you. Everybody knows you when you sing like Tommy sang. Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison. Thank you. Thank you. What a beautiful setting to be singing the Kyrie. Any Catholics in here tonight? One or two, okay. So you know the Kyrie, right? Beautiful piece of melody. So I left the orphanage in 1963, and I got myself a job as a trombone player. I learned how to play the trombone in the school band, and you know, you can imagine how loud a school band would be with like 60 kids who were every one of them angry, fighting, really fed up at everything. And when they put their noise and their anger and their loneliness down into their instruments, that was the loudest band in the whole world. You never heard anything like it. So so the music really moved into my life, and really made my life a lot easier. And actually, I forgot to tell you a little story about Tommy Bonner, that last song that I just wrote there. Tommy was a champion boxer. He was a really big, strong man, not a kind of a fella you wanted to get into a tussle with on the playground, you know. But he wasn't a bully by any stretch of the imagination. He was really a really sweet guy, like a gentle giant, I called him, you know. And anyway, so when I left the orphanage, after many years, I started to think, you know, maybe I wonder what Tommy Bonner is doing. I wonder what my old friends are doing in the orphanage. You know, so I would start to Google them, and I never found any of them. So I wrote that song, the Tommy Bonner song, about 7 or 8 years ago, and I put it up on my website. And then about a year later, I got an email saying, excuse me for interrupting, but my name is Kevin Bonner, and I have a feeling you might be singing about my father. And he said I was sitting by my computer tonight thinking about my father. My father's a really big, you know, hard-drinking, smoking, fighting Irishman. And him and I really don't get on very well. We haven't spoken in many years, he said. And I knew he was in an orphanage, but he never told us much about that. But I knew he was in an orphanage, so I'm sitting by my computer, and I put his name into Google, he says, Tommy Bonner, and Google. And he said, in minutes I'm on your website, and I've downloaded your song, listening to you sing about my father 50 years ago. So that was a very sweet thing that happened from music for me. Lots of beautiful things happened with music for me. And I always say I've never done an honest day's work in my life. And so I got into the bands in Ireland in 1960s. There must have been 500 bands in a small little country, and there must have been 1,000 dance halls. That was the only place you could go to meet somebody, was a dance hall in Ireland in the 50s, in the 60s. Anyway, so I was really tired after about 10 years on the road. So in 1973, I went to London, and I would busk on the subways in London. I gave up. I was making a lot of money in Ireland, but I wanted to be on my own. I wanted to be just wanted to let things go and just see what would happen if I did nothing. Because I felt like I'd been running since I was 8 years of age. So I did nothing. I slept on friends' floors. I played my guitar, wrote songs. And if I needed a few shillings to eat, I would go and busk on the subways. And one of the places I would busk was a place called Euston Station in the heart of London. And it's a hub where all the Irishmen would go to get the train back to Ireland, to get the train to the northern England, and they'd catch the boat. And I'd be playing my guitar there in the subway, and I would recognize my fellow Irishmen like from 400 or 500 yards away, even from behind. There's just something about the way he walks, you know, something about the way he's dressed. And so I wrote this song about an Irishman going home. This is called Euston Station. Euston Station, and I've just missed a train. All the day girls and the beggars washed out by the rain, and a tambourine lady and a saxophone man sing a sad song of somewhere to go if you can. And it's times like this that I'd miss Kilkenny, and I'd sing the old songs, and I'd swear to go home. But the work and the money make a man play a part, and in clay and in concrete he can bury his heart. To the fields and the farmyards where I ran as a lad come the stories of London town and the times to be had. So I saved up my money, came as fast as I could, and the stories were true enough, and the times they were good. Oh, but now and then, when I'd miss Kilkenny, and I'd sing the old song, with the boys from the coal yards in the King's Head nearby. With a wink it'd say, come on Dan, and we drink someplace dry. Yeah, hey, whoa. Now it's Euston Station, to the newsboys' harsh cry. Gypsy girls selling flowers have a glint in their eye, and I know why. As the harried commuters rush on home for the day, all the songs of the buskers somehow seem to say, if you longs to be somewhere, God's sakes go while you can. If you live full of yearning, you're gonna die half a man. And I miss Kilkenny as I'm boarding this train. But by this time tomorrow, I'll be home again. So many songs are written, Irish songs are written about a fella who wants to go home to Ireland, you know. He's living in New York somewhere, and oh, I miss Ireland, and one of these days I'm going to get the money, and I'm going to go back. And I thought it was high time somebody wrote a song about somebody actually going back to Ireland. So there you go. A rare thing, you know. So, like I told you, I've written a whole bunch of songs from my wife. And if you meet her afterwards, you'll know why. But when we met about 25 years ago, I'm one of these guys who likes to kind of wander off on my own and into the woods somewhere and kind of sit on my own and play my guitar on my own. And I like to spend a lot of time on my own. And that kind of worried Liz when we met. And one day I realized that when I was off somewhere on my own, I realized that as soon as I felt okay about myself, the first person I wanted to see was my wife, Liz. So I thought I have to write a song about that. So I wrote this song. I'm a working man. Life leaves its mark. And sometimes I need to be alone to find a deeper part. But don't you ever worry that I'm losing sight of you. 'Cause wherever I go, when I need to renew, I go there to get back to you. There's so many things that I've never learned to share, and I can see the hurt in your eyes, thinking I don't care. But times when I go quiet, I'm searching for what's true. And as soon as I find it, and I always do, a better man gets back to you. There's a part of me that I've got to find all on my own. But when I touch the feelings that make me who I am, they send me right back to your arms. So come a little closer, inside myself. Please don't be afraid, 'cause my love for you is deeper than changes I go through. And if you ever find me on the wrong side of blue, won't you hold me for a minute or two till I get back to you? Thank you. Thank you. Now, the orphanage that I was brought up in was known as an industrial school. Anybody know what an industrial school is? No. Well, okay. You're in for a treat. In industrial school, there was 800 of us. So the industrial schools in the 40s and 50s, and actually long before that, they were designed so that you were designed to be self-supporting. So we made our own clothes, we made our own tweed, made our own boots. The boots, you can imagine the kind of boots that a 14-year-old boy would make, you know. Really, really heavy leather. Each boot must have weighed about 5 pounds each, you know. Metal heels, metal toes, and metal studs all over the boot. Just the heaviest darn thing you've ever worn in your life. And of course we milked our own cows and grew the vegetables and cut our own hair. We didn't pull our own teeth, I'm afraid, but the teeth were pulled anyway, I can tell you, with no Novocaine either. So we baked our own bread, because bread was the main ingredient on the orphanage menu. We had a big hunk of bread for breakfast, and a little bit of meat for dinner, and then a big hunk of bread for supper that night. So these loaves of bread were baked in huge ovens, hundreds at a time. And you can imagine, like, with the lads looking after the ovens, sneaking out for a cigarette or playing cards or falling asleep. Sometimes things could go very wrong indeed with the loaves of bread. And if they did, you better have hard teeth. You better have strong teeth. So this is the true story of the life and death of the hardest loaf of bread in God's universe. 10:30, all the day's work is done. The dormitory lights are out, all except in one. 100 lads and 50 are making not a peep, and McCarthy, the night watchman, he's pretending not to sleep. Now in walks O'Reilly, he's the reason I'm awake. My good friend was a baker, and he'd been working late. I saw he kept his promise with a loaf beneath his coat, and I'd been waiting half the night, hungry as a goat. Now O'Reilly screams a whisper as he gives the bread a knock. I left it in too long, Dan, it's harder than a rock. He threw it across the bedrolls, said catch it if you can, and I missed it, and it landed with a God Almighty bang. Now up jumps McCarthy, he's droopy as a drake, famous as an idiot when fully wide awake. 20 years a watchman, 60 years a fool, as tough as he was stupid and as stubborn as a mule. And then he says, the funniest thing I ever heard, he said, who threw the boot? I laughed till I was hoarse. O'Reilly grabs the loaf of bread, stifling the roars. Who threw the boot? We howled again some more. It's the night O'Reilly's loaf of bread nearly broke the floor. Now 100 lads and 50 are warming to the joke. McCarthy's running around the room, he's working on a stroke. You're just a bunch of numbers, that insult was the truth, 'cause each lad had a number that was stamped upon his boot. Now the logic of the innocent, impossible to fault, it hits the bald McCarthy like a shot of single malt. First I'll find the boot, says he, then I'll land a farce. Then I'll have his number, then I'll kick his bloody arse. All right, I'm giving you one more chance, boys. Who threw the boot? I laughed till I was hoarse. We're underneath the blankets and we're stifling the roars. Who threw the boot? We howl against some more. It's the night O'Reilly's loaf for bread nearly broke the floor. Now, there are a few things in the memory of my youth as dear to me as that of trying not to laugh in the face of an adult who's just about to skin you alive, you know? Because there you were caught doing something really stupid, and you're going to get it. And this adult who has the power of life and death over you would like you to acknowledge that power in some small way in your demeanor, in your humility, if you don't mind. And he's doing his best to embody the fear of hellfire itself. And you're looking up at his ugly face, and for some reason or another, today, you're just not buying it, you know? Maybe it's because behind the adult, you can see all your friends and they're all sniggering and laughing, you know? Anyway, way down deep in the belly of your soul, you can feel the ghost of a laughter trying to make its way up into your chest. And you're going, no you don't, please, not now, don't let me laugh. He's gonna murder me. You're looking around at your friends and they're just all killing themselves, and before you know what happens, out it comes. Beautiful, glorious, unstoppable laughter. And there you are, you're bent double, and you're looking up at the adult, and he looks like he's about to give birth to a brick. But for one, you know you're going to get it. You're not getting away with this. You know you're going to get it hot and heavy. But for one glorious minute, you just don't give a damn. And in that glorious minute, you're free. In that awful institution, or there was a vice. No boots were kept in boot rooms. There was not a boot in sight. But confident of victory, righteous in his cause, old McCarthy searched till morning for the boot that never was. Now down through the years, as I tell this tale anew, I must admit it grows a bit, but most of it is true. And whenever awful memories raise their ugly heads, I still can see McCarthy crawling underneath the beds. And I hear him say, someone's gonna pay for this. Who threw the boot? Those immortal words, they still can get me going, have me howling like a horse. Who threw the boot? I'm laughing all the more. It's the night O'Reilly's loaf for bread made the rafters roar. That's the night O'Reilly's loaf for bread nearly broke the floor. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was the true story, you know. And you know, it's impossible to tell. It's impossible to tell just how hilarious it is, because the orphanage is such a punitive place, you know. It's like it's so kind of. Oh. But you know, when the loaf of bread hit the floor, all the guys around knew that it was a loaf of bread, you know, because they were looking at the loaf of bread. Everybody was starving all the time, you know. And when the watchman stood up, he was asleep, and he just said, okay, okay, as if he knew exactly what was going on, you know. He goes, all right, okay, now, who threw the boot? And it's like the place just kind of fell apart, you know. It went on half the night. Anyway, I'm going to sing you... I wanted to write a song that, you know, it doesn't matter really in my life, I've noticed. It doesn't matter how bad things get, you know, or how wrong things can go, and they can go wrong, you know, especially when you're performing, you know, and you're up on stage in front of people. Things can go very wrong, you know. So here we go. I want to write a song about that. When life laughs you down like a sad, broken clown in a washed-up circus on the rough side of town, and they kick you out in the storm, I'll get you home. When dead men can't tell you ain't singing so well on that drunken piano at the Heartbreak Hotel, and they trash your microphone. I'll get you home. When your garden is overgrown, I'll come and mow your lawn. And when that old grim reaper comes, I'll be your clone. When you've done her wrong and your baby has gone, but your car and your money, your shoes and your phone, and you smell like cheap cologne, I'll get you home. When your garden's overgrown, I'll come and mow your lawn. And when that old grim reaper comes, I'll be your clone. When you've staked your claim on the dark side of fame, tired old outlaw on a horse with no name, and he falls and breaks your bones, and the wind begins to moan, and the sky is filled with drones. I'll get you home. I'll get you home. Thank you. Thank you. You didn't know an Irishman could sing the blues, did you? I think they're passing around the hats, okay? Now don't be shy, you know? Don't forget, I'm just a poor orphan, you know? And we don't want my kids to end up orphans either, right? So I'm going to sing you a song this time. This is a song I wrote about going back to my hometown, Dublin City. You know, you can never go back. When you leave your hometown and you've been away for 10 years, you can never go back, you know? So this is about that. This is called Another Dublin. Actually, it's up here a little bit. Sing it better up here. I'm wide awake, my eyes are open, but my home looks like a dream. Dublin's lights call out a welcome, but my soul can hear her scream. Years of yearning bring me back now, to find my home no longer mine. These harbor lights don't shine for me. It's not the town I've longed to see. It's in my mind a million miles behind. And there's another Dublin on my mind. Not so long ago, it seems, I ran these streets of splendor, a Dublin lad with Dublin dreams, and Dublin's arms so tender, arms that pulled me across the ocean. Where is your tenderness tonight? Your harbor lights don't shine for me. You're not the town I've longed to see. I'm home with open arms only to find there's another Dublin on my mind. From the Coombe to Ballymun, your dignity has gone, with miles of hostile frown lines frowning down. But who am I to blame when I myself have changed more than the streets of my hometown? the haze an ancient song rings out across the river. Words of days and glory gone that send me all a shiver. Gypsy children by the quayside are all that's left of kinder times. These harbor lights don't shine for me. It's not the town I've come to see. It's in my mind a million miles behind. And there's another Dublin on my mind. These harbor lights don't shine for me. It's not the town I've come to see. I'm looking, but I might as well be blind. 'Cause there's another Dublin. There's another Dublin. There's another Dublin on my mind. Another Dublin on my mind. Thank you. Thank you. So we got time maybe for one or two more songs, if you're very good to me. I'm going to play you a song this time, which is about a little girl who came into my life. She was like maybe 6 or 7 years of age, and her mother was a single mother, and we got together for a while. Maybe back about 35 years ago, and maybe 30 years ago. And the only thing is, I think the little girl likes me more than the mother did, you know. So it never worked out, and it was pretty hard on the little girl. And she kind of wrote me an email about a year and a half ago, and reminded me of this incident, which happened, a true incident, which happened on the beach while we were on holidays in a Greek island called Corfu. This is called Butterfly. I knew it was over by the look in her eye, so I turned to watch her daughter, who was chasing butterflies. Really wants to catch one, but you know how that goes. You push the things you love away, trying to get too close. Then I heard myself say something I still barely understand. I said, trust the Mother Nature, baby, and hold out your hand. She took my words to heart, held her little hand up high. Hear the whisper something I'll remember all my life. Butterfly, please don't fly away. I just want to play. I won't take away your freedom. Butterfly, this I promise you. I won't capture you. So come back and be my friend until it's time to fly away again. They're flying all around her as she waits on the beach. Tell me, how can something come so close to stay so out of reach? I saw a teardrop gather in the corner of her eye. I told her, baby, don't give up, give it one more try. She closed her eyes tightly and squeezed out that tear, and filled the air around her with a feeling so sincere. The magic of her innocence reached up above the sand, till one of those gorgeous creatures landed in her hand. Butterfly, please don't fly away. I just want to play. I won't take away your freedom. So come back and be my friend until it's time to fly away again. Now the years have come and gone, and she's a woman now, but there remains the pain of things that fall apart. And I hope within this song I can let her know somehow that her butterfly's been landing in my heart, always landing in my heart. Butterfly, please don't fly away. I just want to play. I won't take away your freedom. Butterfly, this I promise you, I won't capture you. So come back and be my friend until it's time to fly away again. Until it's time to fly away again. Thank you. So this final song that I'm gonna play for you is about it's about friendship, and maybe 5 or 6 years ago I just started to notice I'm 67 years of age, you know, and I started to notice that a lot of my friends are checking out, you know, and I decided, you know, I'm just gonna make sure that I let the people in my life that I love, I'm going to make sure that I let them know that I love them, you know. So I started to you know, tell my friends, you know, talking on the phone, yeah, I love you, man. Just want you to know, you know, I love you, and so on. And anyway, there was this friend of mine called Nigel, and Nigel and I had been friends for maybe like 40 years. I told you when I left Ireland and I went to London and I played on the subways and so on. Nigel, it was Nigel's floor that I slept on. So Nigel was a really, really, really beautiful guy, really tall and strong and handsome, wonderful musician, played the most beautiful keyboard, had really lots of successful albums. And so I heard Nigel wasn't well, and so we knew he was going to a kind of a festival that we wanted to go to in Australia, so we went and met him in Australia. And by this time he had recovered from the cancer that he'd been suffering from, and he was on the mend. He was doing really well, and we had a couple of drinks together. And I was telling him, you know, Nigel, I just want to let you know just how much you've meant to me in my life, and you know, as a friend, you know, you had a big influence on me, and I just really want you to know just how much you've meant to me, and Liz actually. And so he was really taken aback by this. You know, he was a very shy kind of a fella. So anyway, he'd come into some money, and he invited Liz and I to go with him to Bali on vacation. And we couldn't go because I had to go home and do some gigs. So anyway, he went on his own and went for a swim one day, and the ocean just took him. He never came out of the ocean. And I just, it was just so, you know, I felt like he'd kind of recovered from the cancer, and there was still kind of like bits and pieces going through his body, but somehow or another, I kind of felt that he was ready to go. And we have this beautiful picture of him as he was walking into the sea, and he's just kind of waving like this to those people who are behind him. His sister and his girlfriend were behind him, and they took some photographs as he walked into the sea, and he never came out. And so I wrote this song about friendship. So before I finish off, just want to say thank you to Wanda for having us here tonight, for all the support she's shown us. I want to thank you all, the society, both the Folk Society and the Irish Society. I also want to thank Joe and Terry and Bob for putting me up in their beautiful home. I want to thank Mark at the back there for doing a great job on the sound. Give him a big round of applause, everybody. I know there's something deeper than friendship that I find in the shelter of your easy company. Somewhere in the trusting of the silence that leaves nothing unspoken, we set each other free. There in the space between the lines, traces of the innocence we thought we'd left behind. Well, I can't say that I always know what's on your mind, but I always know for certain that you're a friend of mine. Diddle-di-di-diddle-di-di. They say that on the far side of the river, old friends will gather together in a dance. But something in this precious passing moment will disappear forever, so I will make my stand here in the space between the lines. Meet you in the now and then, and when you've got the time, here while the blossom is still upon the vine, I'll make you know for certain that you're a friend of mine. You're a friend of mine. I walk along the river in the lamplight, looking for the city that used to be my home. Still the mists of memory wrap around me like smoke around a chimney, still clinging to the stone. There in the space between the lines, you're shining through the reverie, the water and the wine. If I could start again across the mystery of time, I'd live my whole life knowing that you're a friend of mine. You're a friend of mine. Let me hear you sing this song. You're a friend of mine, yeah. You're a friend of mine. You're a friend of mine. You're a friend of mine. Let's have some harmony. You're a friend of mine. You're a friend of mine. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Look at this. Now there's a fellow with good taste. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I'll do one more song. You've convinced me. You've convinced me. I'm going to sing a song I wrote. I told you earlier on that I used to go busking. Do you know what busking is? Everybody knows what busking is, right? It's a street musician, right? I don't know what you call them over here, but they call them buskers back home. And they have it really organized back home because, and actually here too, as far as I know. So you would get your little spot and you do your little thing, and after about an hour, the other guitar player or singer would be there going like this because it's time to move on and let him take his turn. And in between my turns, I would often end up hanging out with the homeless people, you know. Just something I always love to do. I always love to kind of sit on the ground and maybe have a Coke or something, or a cup of coffee with some of the homeless people and just listen to their stories. And some of the stories that the homeless people have to tell are really amazing, you know, because you know, not all of them kind of really made a choice to be homeless, you know. Sometimes they just lost a job, or they lost a flat, or they got sick or something like that, and they ended up just not having an address, you know. And it's really important to have an address, you know. If you want to get a job, you have to have an address. And so without an address, you can't get a job, and without a job, it's like you're homeless. So it just goes a vicious circle. So this is a song I wrote about that kind of situation. This one is called Roadside Prayer. They say he was born to wander, but he gets a little lost sometimes. Days he looks up from the pavement. Someone is changing the signs, but there's always some music playing from somebody's window somewhere, saying all words saying in a roadside prayer. Give me the strength to be lonely when company is hard to keep. Give me the grace to stay quiet when words are falling fast and cheap. Give me the push to be restless when the rest is hard to bear. That's how God made angels out of roadside prayers. Some blessed contradiction deep down in his soul straddles the borders of freedom, and he aching to have and to hold. But every time trust comes easy, he hears a carnival somewhere pulling him round the corners of a roadside prayer. Give me the strength to be lonely when company is hard to keep. Give me the grace to stay quiet when words are falling fast and cheap. Give me the push to be restless when the rest is hard to bear. That's how God made angels out of roadside prayers. God made angels out of roadside prayers. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. God bless you all. Once again, thanks to everybody. Wanda and Mark at the back. I'm sorry? I might announce that I'm going to be signing books downstairs and selling lots of CDs. Lots of CDs. Because you know, Christmas is not very far away. You know that, don't you? And CDs don't go bad. They get better. And nobody minds if you listen to the CD before you give it away for a Christmas present. You see? And books are the same, you know? But not oranges. Okay, so we'll see you downstairs. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much.
The simple life tastes sweet.